situations, technology isn't working, it's like, you can either crash and burn, or you can just laugh about it and say, okay.
Is Larry back?
He must be. There's the PowerPoint.
Yes, I am trying to not crash and burn, and I'm trying to take it in stride. It's getting a little difficult.
Okay, well, let's just all belly laugh with you, man. Hey, we're going to get through this, man, together.
Okay, so let's try this again. You guys can see that screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and actually, no, because now I have to, yes, share computer sound and optimize screen sharing. And now I'm back. Okay. So, please move the window. Oh, okay. Stop this sharing again. You're okay. Never rush. That's always a bad thing. So, okay. So I will do this, and there it is. Okay. And can you all see me? Can you all see the screen?
It's perfect.
Yes.
And you can all hear me.
Yes.
So we're going to try this again. We're going to try to catch up where we need to be. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we were talking about Marshall Linehan. Okay, so let me see if I have to let anybody else in. Did you let anyone in, Angela? It looks like people have
Yes, sir, about 4 people.
Right, thank you very much. So, in dialectical behavioral therapy, Marshall Linehan has found the use of humor and irreverence can help by distracting and breaking a train of thought. For example, and the example often given for this is, client says, I'm going to kill myself. Therapist says, I thought we agreed that you were not going to quit therapy. So obviously, when we use these interventions, we should have some idea how the person works, how we work with them. You should know there's a bunch of work out there. There's not a lot of studies about humor and mental health. There's a lot of opinions. There are a few studies. In the second paragraph down there, Mark Gelkoff tried to do a meta-analysis of a whole bunch of studies. And while a lot of the conclusions were, it looks like it helps, it might help, it appears to help, there was some things that were highly correlated. And that is, the use of humor can reduce psychiatric symptomatology, anxiety, depression, verbal hostility and aggression, anger, improve social supports. And actually, teaching people about humor actually improves social competence. So, but remember, when we use it, such as that, some would say risky, I'm going to kill myself, I thought we agreed you were not going to quit therapy, prepare for the response you get, not for the response you expect or hope for. That's something we also mention a lot in trauma-informed care. That's a very dangerous thing when we decide how things are going to go instead of dealing with what we get, right? So we don't want to do that. So we have an example I'm going to read to you from an examination of the integration of humor into clinical social work by Stephanie Nathanson. She talked about this woman, Adele. It's a very short anecdote. A 25-year-old female was working with a therapist for about 2 months to manage her mild depression and feeling stuck in her life. The therapist was feeling stuck too in their work. Adele presented with a generally flat affect and when asked was unable to recall any details of her childhood. The therapist gave her a homework assignment. Adele was to remember one positive event, a birthday party, a trip from her childhood, and it would be explored in the next session. The following week, Adele haltingly began to speak about selling small items at her parents' beach club with 2 friends and her little sister when she was a child. To spur her on, the therapist asked Adele to recount as many details as she could. What sort of things did she sell? How much did they cost? Where did she display her wares? Who was in charge of the money? After Adele answered each question in a brief manner, the therapist changed tack and started prompting her with playful questions and comments, such as, so when did you realize you were an entrepreneur? It seems you didn't trust your little sister to be the finance officer. How did you know what color troll hair would be popular that summer? Adele began to giggle, smile, remember amusing details, and produced humorous commentary on her own. At the end of the story, both she and the therapist were laughing. So, anyone have any thoughts about that, or how they've seen something similar in their work?
Yeah, Greg here. I have something kind of similar, and it's really funny because not, funny, but sometimes I will have some intention, and because I always think I'm funny. And the impact, my intent is to make them laugh, but the impact is different because they didn't really understand where I was coming from or how bizarre my sense of humor is. And for me, it's something that I really need to be intentional about and really aware of, because it could be either way, it could go really well or it could go really bad. Thanks.
Thank you. So, I've tried, I also think I'm funny, and that's often something that we only think about ourselves. But I've always tried to use it in my work. It's funny, this story reminds me of my own daughter. When she was a little girl, she used to collect up a bunch of my items and set up a store and then sell them back to me. And she made a lot of money. We're using it for college now because I needed my stuff. So I had to pay through the nose to get it back. So, but I've always tried. I think it works well in your work, but we're going to look at some examples of some videos because not everyone is funny. Usually people are more self-aware and they know they're not particularly funny. Some of us are fooling ourselves. But what happens is we can still use humor, and we'll look at how we're going to do that. But humor doesn't just help our emotional well-being, although it can help our mental health, it can help our emotional well-being, and that can start to bleed into our physical health as well. But let's take a look at this video where he's going to detail the way brain chemistry begins to change when you are, in this case, he ties it into petting his dog, but the reason he's using this particular video is humor and pets actually stimulate some of the same brain areas. So we're going to try and watch this, and hopefully it will work well.
Hi everybody, it's Paul. A lot of people ask me, after a long day of voiceover or writing or doing all those creative things that I do, how do I relax? Well, like many other Americans, I come home and I pet my dog. You see, petting the dog is one of the most relaxing things you can possibly do. It releases a hormone called oxytocin, which reduces stress. Also, it lowers your heart rate and it lowers your blood pressure. Plus, people who pet their dogs are 5 times more likely to live longer than people who just have cats. Plus, the dogs like it so much, and it's a nice bonding experience. That's right. Good daddy's little boy. Daddy's little boy. Daddy's little boy. That's right.
So, laughter, as well as petting your animals. I can monitor the chat at the moment. So laughter does confer medical health benefits. We just talked about brain chemistry, so we're going for the emotional health, and then it starts to take us into the physical health. For the past 40 years, studies have shown that good hearty laughter can relieve tension and stress, boost the immune system, reduce stress hormones, and increase activity among immune cells and antibodies. But I'm not just saying this because I like cats more, but petting your cat, he was just making a little joke. But both, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it just cleared up. The screen was fuzzy and now I can read it.
Oh, okay. So just a couple of things for you guys to know, because finally Zoom is going well on my end. You may find that your sound it may get blurry or your sound might go bad. If no one else is saying it, it's a temporary thing on your end. If you're seeing a lot of people in the chat, so I'll try, if I see a lot of chat going on, I will try to to monitor it, but you should just know if it's one person. So it's important to note that for the videos, because if the next video, if you can't see it, but everyone else can, if I read the chat during the video, it will pause the video. So I try not to do that. So we want to keep in mind, laughter has many beneficial mental health benefits, emotional health benefits, but also it has health benefits. It increases the heart and respiratory rates, as opposed to, he just said about pets slowing it down, but actually what happens is you relax afterward. It's like exercise. As you know, when you exercise, you want to get your heart rate up to an optimal level, because then it goes to a resting, slower level. And so same thing with laughter, and it lowers these stress hormones. And I don't know if you guys have seen the literature, knowing that many of us are in the mental health field, whether it's as providers, consumers, or often both. We know that stress is not a good thing, and so anything we can do to reduce it, very important. A study found that laughter therapy can effectively delays cardiovascular complications of type 2 diabetes. Now, understand, we showed you some mental health benefits. We're talking physical benefits. These are, like with everything else, they're generalities. So people need to some people may feel they laugh a lot. I've known some people who are very happy people who had very poor health. So that's not everything. People still need to keep up with the doctor and everything else. But it's important to keep this in mind. Watching a funny movie decreased bronchial responsiveness in people with asthma. And that's a funny one, because I have asthma, and I've watched comedies where I laugh so much I started to have an asthma problem. So again, these are not universal, but in general, we're seeing health benefits, but we shouldn't promise asthmatics this will help your asthma. It may not. Watching a humorous movie led to improvements in cognitive function. And that's an important one, because people have found that when they are laughing more, thinking about jokes, crafting funny stories, it has been shown to actually help the brain, help the mind stay sharp. A lot like putting together puzzles and mathematical puzzles. They find that crafting funny stories, thinking about putting them together, these things are also like putting puzzles together. So how do we encourage humor in ourselves and those that we work with? So it's important that we learn what, yes, somebody mentioned it didn't help their asthma either, yes. And just to remind people, I know it says I'm Robert, but I'm Larry. So, but it'll send it to Robert, so I understand. So, but I'm signed into Rob's Zoom. So, so learn what makes you and others laugh. Understand your audience. We're going to get back to that when we talk about jokes. Know the rules and boundaries. We're going to talk about that when we get to jokes. I'm going to do my best not to break the rules and boundaries. Because I don't, that can get you fired at a conference like this, and I'm trying not to get fired at any more conferences. So look for the joy in life. Adapt other people's materials. We can do that. We're not doing stand-up routines, so we can use other people's jokes. Look to place people at ease. Write down funny moments. People even who may not think they have the best sense of humor, but they laugh when something's funny. What they don't realize is they can put together very funny things just by writing down the things that happen at work that may make them laugh or their colleagues laugh. So people think they have to craft comedy from scratch, or that comedians who look like they observe the world, that they're really not observing the world, they're making it all up. But in reality, people who are good at this, they see the funny things that happen in day-to-day life, and then they may embellish them. They usually will embellish them to make them more funny. It's good to laugh at yourself. If you're a little self-deprecating, you don't have to worry about insulting anyone else by accident if you're focusing on yourself. However, don't do it to the point where people just feel bad for you. Feeling sorry for you will change the tone and will just make them, groan and say, "Oh, Larry, don't think that way about yourself." And yes, someone said, "Don't laugh at another person's expense," and we'll be talking about that soon. Place laughter quotes on a bulletin board for all to see. Start a joke jar so that other people in the milieu can contribute what they think is funny, what they know is funny, jokes they made up or they heard. Try laughter meditation and laughter yoga. I'm not a big fan. They actually found, so laughter meditation, laughter yoga is when you force yourself to laugh. Now, if you guys know, there was a study a number of years ago that made people smile throughout the day, whether they felt like smiling or not. And the study found that people who smiled regularly, it elevated their mood. It worked like an antidepressant. So they then looked with live action MRIs and PET scans to see what was happening in the brain. And what they found out was that because we smile since we're an infant, there's a hardwired thing in our brain, like a concrete pathway. We feel good, we smile, we feel good, we smile. So if we smile first, the brain shoots it back the other way and says, well, we're smiling, we must be feeling good. And there's a similar effect they're finding with laughter. When you force yourself to laugh, it starts to elevate your mood. It starts to be an anti-anxiety, an antidepressant. Much like the laughing and the asthma, I didn't find that to be true. When I was taught laughter yoga by a colleague, it made me very uncomfortable. I don't like laughing on purpose, and I really don't like when my colleagues laugh in my face for no reason either. But for some people, including my colleague, it works great. Okay, yes. So tools to use. How can you expand senses of humor? Observe young people to learn how to find delight and amusement in the most ordinary things. So that's sort of a tool to take you and the people that you may be working with or that you might be living with alongside you. That's a way to reintroduce the idea of what's funny when maybe the first time around you didn't have the best circumstances to really to learn what was funny because you were busy in a difficult situation, in a difficult life. We work with, live with, and are ourselves people, many of whom have gone through such things. Increase your exposure to what's considered funny. Comedies, comic sitcoms, joke books. Talk with funny friends, people you think are funny. It helps to talk to them. I learned, it's a funny thing, you know, I wasn't, having children wasn't number one on my list. And then I had a daughter and she's been the greatest thing to ever happen to me. But one of the things that you learn is you get to see how things develop that you may never have seen develop in yourself or other people your age. But my daughter is a very, very funny person. But when she was young, she would be around funny people and she would want to get in on it. And she would tell jokes, but they weren't so funny. And she would try and tell funny stories and they weren't always so funny. And you think, oh my goodness, is she going to have a good sense of humor? But that's how you develop it. You start working on your material at the earliest ages. You see what people respond to. Maybe people force a laugh because you love your kid or you love your friend's kid. But they can tell innately what's a real belly laugh. And what happens is over time, you start to develop these intuitions, these feelings. But it doesn't always happen if you don't get the opportunity. Start observing young people, start that opportunity over again. Increase your exposure to what you know is funny. Increase your exposure to people that you know are funny. Take a 5 to 10 minute humor break each day. Read, write, or listen to something funny. It needs to be a part of your life. You can't just say, I'll go see a funny movie occasionally. I don't know about you guys, but pre-COVID, I was only going to the movies. Now that we have, Netflix and Hulu and now Disney, I actually only went to the movies about twice a year the last few years, maybe 3 times. It's just not something I get to do very often. And when I watch Netflix, I tend to watch, series that I want to see. You might find that you're always putting these things off, that it always seems like next time I'll do it. If you really want to integrate some humor into your work, into your life, make some time for it. And if you hear a joke you really like, write it down. Tell it to someone else will help you remember it. If you write it down and stick it in your pocket, not only won't you remember it, you'll forget that you put it in your pocket. You'll wash your pants. You'll never be able to read it after that. Trust me, that's happened many times. What you want to do is you want to tell it immediately. Tell it to family, tell it to friends, call someone up. After you tell a joke and get a laugh, it often helps it to concretize in your own brain. Any thoughts so far? Any questions? We're zooming along. We've caught up. I don't want to get ahead of myself. This is our launch of this training. It was supposed to be 2 of us having, so I don't want to end I don't want it to go too quick. And I know one of the things I like to do when I do a workshop is I like to hear from people what they're thinking, what they've done. Anything we're saying, strike a chord for anybody? Don't answer all at once, by the way. We can't hear you when you talk over each other.
Yeah, and I hate that. No.
And there you go.
Yeah, so Greg here again. And for me, I'm from California, and I am also a Zumba instructor, and I work for Crestwood Behavioral Health, and we have 34 programs in California, and I get to visit them all because I'm also a Zumba instructor. So we do that exercise piece, and that's what I love about Zumba, is because we also laugh in Zumba, so we combine both. Laughter and exercise. But I mean, I really think that, and I really would like to see 88 people in this training, because laughter is such an important piece. And one of the things that over the years that I've noticed is that when you can have, say, your administrator, your program director, and everybody belly laughing in the milieu with the people we serve, with our guests, it levels the playing field. I mean, it really changes the dynamic for everything and connection. And I think everything starts, the healing process all starts with connection. And I think laughter is an amazing gateway for that.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody, any thoughts before we move on? Others? By the way, you're from California, so we wish you luck. I know there's still a lot of fires out there, so keep safe.
Thank you.
California friends. So how can one expand? How one can expand their sense of humor? There again, it's a possibility. You may know some people in your life who aren't too funny. You may be related to some, or often we work for someone that. Luckily, I don't know if Ruth is back, but I'm lucky I work for someone who is very funny. Sometimes even when she doesn't mean it. But you can do some things. A lot of the people that you may think are not that humorful are they haven't bothered to ever look into that or consider that. So there are more things we can do. Yes, that's, we won't tell. We'll get to that joke. Somebody put a joke in the chat. You're welcome to read it, but we'll be talking about that shortly, about how we choose which jokes we tell. So remind yourself to have fun. If you take comedy too seriously, it can stop being fun. Last year, they drafted me to be in the annual conference comedy show. And everybody thought that would just be the most fun. And people said to me, forget about what the coach says. Just do what you do. You're a funny guy. It doesn't work like that. A lot of times, as you know, you can be funny in the moment. But if you want to actually do comedy, you have to write it down. You have to practice it. And so what happens is if you work hard, you can really take the fun out of humor. And so while that's fine if you're gonna have to do it for a show or a living, It doesn't have to be that way at work. You're having fun. You want the people that you're working with alongside, the people who you serve, you want them to have fun. You have to be having some fun yourself. Spend time with those who help you see the bright side. Whenever possible, avoid negative people, unless, of course, you want to be a negative comic. There are a few of those around. They can make a living too. Avoid conversation, news, entertainment, etc. that frightens, upsets you, or makes you feel sad whenever possible. Be mindful of just lightening up. That's a tough one these days. That may explain why you might be seeing less humor these days. There's not a lot of funny stuff going on. If you turn on, you really can't turn on the news. You can't turn on much without being depressed these days. We have a pandemic. We mentioned California's having its issues. So we have a lot of things that are going on, and we don't want to get too down, but it's hard to just ignore everything. So we got to remember some rules. If you're going to do this sort of stuff, we have to have some rules. So let's discuss these. 1 second. Somebody is putting in. Okay. So we want to use humor to lift others up, not bring them down. So this is really rules for work, that it doesn't hurt to live by these rules. We need never make people feel bad, but that's your choice. You can hurt the ones you love, but at work we don't want to do that. So these rules are good general rules for humor, but you'll be the judge of how you handle your private life, your other areas of your life. But at work we want to use humor that lifts other people's up, doesn't bring them down. Sarcasm is not a license to belittle someone. So, and we have to be careful. We have to be careful because sarcasm comes naturally to some of us. I wouldn't know that for myself, but I know some people seem to feel that I've been sarcastic at times. And so what happens is you have to be very careful. If people see you that way, or you know you're that way, you want to make sure that you don't belittle other people, and you want to make sure that you don't make people feel bad. That's not, if we're going to make people feel bad, then there's really no point in trying to add humor to the work that we're doing. So bad humor is not an acceptable excuse for bad behavior. So you don't get to say something racist, sexist, ageist, discriminatory, and then say, I was just joking. That's something, and I got to tell you something, that's not our training today, but we do a microaggressions and discrimination training. We did a webinar on that sort of stuff recently, and that's actually not acceptable. The fact that you do it and then say it's a joke means absolutely nothing. You can still have the same problems at work, and will no doubt have the same problems outside of work that you would have had if you didn't say, oh, I was just joking. Nor is inappropriate humor acceptable, and must be gauged for the person, the audience, and the situation. So what that means is, there are jokes that are like in green right there. We can use them anywhere. Why couldn't they play cards on Noah's Ark? Because Noah stood on the deck. So now, a lot of people groan when they hear those. A lot of people say, oh, those aren't funny anymore. We've all heard them. And maybe they're not as funny because we've all heard them. But that's the kind of joke where maybe, I'm imagining even at an evangelical meeting, that one will get a laugh. Hard to see where that could offend people. Now, then you have different jokes. Rodney Dangerfield told a lot of jokes about his wife. And he used this one that he said, my wife cut me down to once a month. That's okay. I know guys she cut out completely. Now, I know I can tell this joke here as an example, especially since I believe he was just talking about making him dinner and cooking for him. If you think he meant something else, then that might be where your mind is going. But either way, some people might take a joke like that in different directions. So you might not want to share jokes about people's spouses because it might begin to get into the next area that's written in red. There are jokes that you all can think of right now. I'm not going to help you, that you know you shouldn't be saying. Jokes come to my mind, and I've been told not even to mention the title of the joke, because you will go out and Google it or look at it on your phone, read it right then and there, and blame me, and you'll say, I can't believe Larry told that joke when I didn't even tell it. And then, like I said before, I'm not looking to get fired at another conference, so I'm not going to even give you titles, but you know what kind of jokes they are. They don't belong at work. They're not that yellow area where it depends on your audience. These are for your private life. Probably will get you into some trouble in your private life. Probably don't even belong there, but that's up to you. But at work, there are jokes you should understand you shouldn't be telling. So here's the thing, why we put this in red too. When in doubt, don't do it, don't say it. If you have to think to yourself, I wonder if this joke is okay, it's not okay. If you have to think to yourself, should I tell that story when there are women in the room, people that don't look like me in the room? You shouldn't be telling the story. If you have to ask, it doesn't belong at work. Any thoughts about that? Any questions? Any concerns? Okay. Strategies and exercises that you can do. 3 funny things. At the end of each day, write down the funniest things you experienced that day. Describe the feelings during each experience. Count funny things. As each day progresses, keep track of all the funny things that happen. Briefly jot down each one so that you can get a total at the end of each day. Applying humor. Notice humorous things that happen during a typical day and add new humorous activities. You might include watching a comedy, movie, or sitcom, talking with your funny friends on the phone, looking up funny things on the internet, or reading comics or jokes. What we're basically doing is trying to say, we showed you some mental health benefits, physical health benefits of using humor. And what's come up when we tested these materials is people say, but I'm not funny. Or there's no way to work that in at work. Or we don't know that you can consistently do that. So all of these things, the last third of this is all about ways to incorporate it into your practice, into your daily lives. Please feel free to bring up anything of your own, because at the end, when we get to the end, I want to have some time. I want people to talk about their anecdotes, their experiences. So please think about how you would use this going forward. Think about what you think you could apply and practice from the things that we're talking about right now. Collect funny things. Recall one of the funniest things you experienced in the past, recent past, distant past, and write them down. Write that memory down with a lot of details, because as we discussed, when you're telling these stories, they can be very funny, and they don't have to be intentionally funny. Funny things happen to people, and often the humor is in the details. The things that you notice that made you laugh will make other people laugh. Think about a stressful experience from your day. Write about how it was or could have been resolved in a funny or humorous way. Think about different things you've used. Think about, things that would work for you. Before we go back to our job, let's look at the 11 stages of our workday.
I don't think I've let myself.
and then we'll talk about, so these videos that we use, they're very easy to find on the internet. We picked them very purposefully. As you saw, we did one that while he is playing with his dog, we're laughing, we're enjoying it. He's talking about neurotransmitters. He's talking about real things that happen. When you're dealing with someone who talks about the stresses of their work life, when you're talking to people who are, stressed out about their work, these are things, this is ways to incorporate humor into what you're doing. Don't think you have to write the jokes, find jokes and tell them. Some people are very uncomfortable telling jokes. They don't really want to do that. So instead of telling jokes, play funny videos. A lot of times during our other trainings, trauma-informed care, we use uplifting videos and things. Funny videos have their place. Laughter has its place. Hope we've convinced you of that today, that we've convinced you of that. So a few final parting thoughts before we go to questions and your thoughts. Laughter is the most inexpensive and most effective wonder drug. Laughter is a universal medicine. A good laugh heals a lot of hurts. I have not seen anyone dying of laughter, but I know millions who are dying because they are not laughing, or perhaps have no reason to laugh. So thoughts, comments, any anecdotes of your own you'd like to share, and of course, any questions.
I have a knock-knock joke, Larry.
Let's hear it, Angela.
Knock-knock.
Who's there?
HIPAA.
HIPAA who?
I can't give you that information.
And there you go. So now, see that Angela's now shared a perfect at-work joke. Everybody on this training can appreciate that joke. So that's always a good start. So other thoughts, other anecdotes.
Hi, this is Liz. I'll put my video on. I thought this was really great, so thank you for that. I'm a certified peer specialist. I work with the Mental Health Association. I'm also a certified laughter yoga leader, and I just had a story that I wanted to share about that. For about 5 years, I taught a weekly laughter yoga class at a library, and a local newspaper wrote an article about it with the contact information. And through that, I got a letter from a man who was in a high security prison. This isn't a joke, by the way. I got a letter from him saying that he wanted to learn about laughter yoga. And I remember the line in this letter that really struck me was, prison is the place where laughter comes to die. And he was just so desperate to be able to have some kind of levity in his life. So we started this pen pal relationship, which is still going on 10 years later. And I taught him through letters how to do laughter yoga, and he gradually started to run groups within the prison, which became so popular that other prisoners then learned the strategies from my friend, and it just grew and grew. And it grew to the point that I was so fascinated by the effects that it was having and the popularity of it that we made this kind of questionnaire to ask people how did they rate their anger levels, their sleep, their connection with other people, that kind of thing, to actually gather some data from it. And, you know, it was just a small scale, casual kind of thing, but, you know, it really proved the benefits of laughter and connection, even in a really, really stressful situation like prison.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And I hope that I in no way disparaged laughter yoga earlier in this. So I did not mean to impugn it. It was only a personal thing. And I've been told many times, including by people on this workshop, that my views are not what everyone else often believes. So
And I think that there's good things and bad things about it. I sometimes think it's a little weird, and the thing that I find most beneficial of it is not just the idea behind it, but I just love that it creates connection between people. And you know, whatever way you get connection between people, I think you just can't knock it, right? It all works, and everybody has a different way to get there. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I'm glad, you know, we mentioned connection. I'm glad she reinforced that. I mean, that's what our work is about. We know about the therapeutic relationship. This is a way to strengthen it. This is a way sometimes to connect with people who you may be having trouble connecting with. Just remembering all those rules. The PowerPoint will be on our website. The recording will be on our website, but in 2 pieces because I had to sign out. So, but everything will be there. Other thoughts, comments, anecdotes before we...
Yeah. Hi, Robert. Yeah.
Hey.
My name's Ariel. I live in White Plains, New York, Westchester County. I run virtual support groups, and I also, under meetup.com, I have my own Talent Express group under Westchester Independent Living Center. They give me support with that group. And my Talent Express group, it's all about expressing your talent through art, poetry, telling jokes, making people laugh. And in my virtual support group that I do, I work for Mental Health Empowerment Project.
Right. And
I do support groups at home. And talking about like jokes and everything, my 9 p.m., I do a 9 p.m. group at night with the support group. Sometimes it's up to the peers that come to my group, and sometimes they want to joke around and just have a little bit of laughter. And I mean, it's up to them. So when they laugh, it makes me laugh.
So that's good.
I just wanted my Talent Express group. It's under meetup.com, Talent Express, White Plains, New York.
Thank you for sharing, and thanks for the link. I like to tell people I work for NYAPRS, but my boss doesn't always agree. So she sometimes tells people something different. Any other anecdotes, thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah. Greg here again. I really like the thing about writing down 3 funny things daily, and even thinking about funny things, remembering funny things from the past, because a lot of times I lose those, and I really need to do that. Also wanted to do a quick quote that says from Yakov Smirnov. He says, "Everybody laughs in the same language because laughter is the universal connection."
That's a great quote. Thank you. That's very true. So, very true. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, anecdotes?
I just wanted to say that I thought Greg was going to say a joke about vodka when he said Smirnoff.
Yes, he does a lot of those.
I was like, uh-oh.
Yes. But Greg remembered the rules from the previous slides, and he said, "No, I can't do that." So, okay.
And 25 years sobriety. So.
Oh, there you go. Very good. So I'm feel free. We have some time for more questions, but I want to finish up. So I want to thank everyone. You will receive an evaluation link in your email. Please fill it out. It's required if you're looking for CEUs. Couple of things to note. So nobody makes this training in a vacuum. My colleague Robert did a lot of work on this. Unfortunately, as you guys, many of you know, my colleague Robert is brothers with Len Statham, and they're both going through a family tragedy. They lost their mother this week. So Len isn't at the conference today. Rob is not here, but he put a lot of work into this. Rob is the NYAPRS trainer for upstate. I am the NYAPRS trainer for New York City and Long Island. And right now, the middle of the state, we're covering that too, which is working fairly well because we're using Zoom. That might become tougher in the future if they ever get a handle on this pandemic. So you can reach out to us if there's a more full version of this training, because this was only an hour 15 minutes, give or take. It would have been a little shorter if not for many, many technical challenges. I appreciate that so many of you stuck it out and bared with me and got through this training. We can be reached directly, Larry or Robert, if you want training. But if you need training and you're not sure who to call, you can always email Ruth. That she's up there too, Ruth Cologne Wagner. She's our boss. She's the director of our department, ruthcw@nyaprs.org. Also, please send any and all nasty reviews about this training to her. Please don't post them on Yelp. And I really appreciate your time. Apparently I am giving you a break. It just comes at the end of the training, but you're getting out early, and I'm going to put on the interlude if I can find it. That's one thing I did not prepare for today. And Ruth put up her email there too. So thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. And if you come up with any further questions, comments, you want further information, or you realized you meant to tell me what I did wrong, but you forgot to do it in a timely manner, LarryH@nyaprs.org will find me. So thank you all very much. Please stay safe, stay well. It's been a pleasure, and I will end this one, and I will put up the interlude. Okay, so the meeting will continue, so you can keep chatting, but I will now share the interlude screen. If I can find the interlude. So, okay. So I have to stop recording.